My daughter snapped. You better go and live in a care home. I can't waste my time on you. She said this immediately after I returned home from having a prostate cancer surgery, for which I had paid. So I sacked her and her husband from my house and employed a nurse to take care of me at home. What happened after they left changed everything. I will tell you how it all unfolded. First, let me quickly thank you for your continuous support. This means a lot to us. If you enjoy the stories we share, kindly subscribe to this channel. It will be great if you can leave a comment on which city you are watching from. We might just give you a shout out in our next story. Today's special shout out goes to William Campbell from Texas. We are glad you enjoy our stories. Now let's go deeper into the story. I returned home to silence. Not the kind of peaceful quiet that soothes your nerves, but a hollow, expectant silence. The type that makes your skin crawl like something isn't quite right. The driver had helped me up the stairs, carrying my overnight bag with more care than necessary, his brows furrowed with something like pity. I brushed it off. Surgery had gone well, or as well as a prostate cancer surgery could go. I'd paid out of pocket for the best, and my recovery window was looking favorable. I was sore, slow, and not in the best spirits, but I was alive. That should have meant something. But as I walked into the foyer of the house I built, every tile, every inch of crown molding placed under my supervision, I was greeted by no one. My daughter, Ella, had promised she'd be home. I'd asked her twice, "Are you sure you can handle a few weeks helping me recover?" She'd replied, "Of course, Daddy. I wouldn't let anyone else do it." Now the lights were dim, the television in the den echoed some reality show, and the kitchen smelled faintly of burnt toast. And then she appeared. Her face locked in irritation, not concern. She didn't ask how I was feeling. She didn't reach out for a hug. Instead, she rolled her eyes and said, "You better go and live in a care home. I can't waste my time on you." It landed like a gunshot. I froze. My hands, still wrapped in light bandages from the IVs, trembled. I tried to smile it off, thinking maybe she was joking. Maybe it was some twisted attempt at humor. "What?" I asked, my voice gravelly. She sighed as if I were inconveniencing her by existing. "I didn't sign up to play nurse. I've got a life. A real one. And Ryan, he can't just keep taking time off work every time you decide to almost die." Almost die. That's what she said. My daughter, my only child. The same girl I'd put through private school, paid for her degree she never finished, bought her and her husband a car, and let them live in my guest house rent-free for 6 years. She was standing in my doorway, telling me I was a burden. I looked at her for a long time. The woman in front of me looked like my daughter, but her heart, I didn't recognize that. I nodded slowly, walked past her, and picked up the landline in the hallway. I called my lawyer first, told him to be ready for a will update. Then I called a private nursing agency and requested a full-time live-in caregiver. Lastly, I called Ryan. Told him to pack their things and get off my property within 24 hours. "Are you serious?" Ella barked, trailing behind me as I climbed the stairs with agonizing effort. "You don't get to talk to me like that in my home," I said calmly, "and then expect my roof to shelter you." She scoffed. "You're sick. You can't even walk up the stairs without holding the banister like a child. What do you think you're going to do? Change your will out of spite?" "No, sweetheart," I said, pausing at the top landing. Out of clarity. That night, I barely slept. The nurse arrived the next morning, a soft-spoken woman named May, with gentle eyes and a quiet sense of humor. She helped me shower, made me soup, and sat with me as I muttered through my exhaustion. There was no judgment in her presence, no irritation, just patience. Later that day, I went into the guest house to make sure they'd left. The bedroom was a mess, as expected. They'd left fast. But what shook me wasn't the unmade bed or the discarded clothes. It was the brown envelope on the desk. My name was scribbled on the front in Ryan's handwriting. I opened it with trembling fingers. Inside were printouts, email drafts, proposals, business forecasts. At first, I didn't understand. Then the picture formed. Ella and Ryan had been preparing for my death. Not in the responsible, adult way of prearranged care. No, this was sinister. They were preparing to sell my company before I was even cold. One document read, "Post-funeral investor strategy." My funeral. I sat there for a long time, The papers spread around me like a crime scene. I hadn't cried during the surgery, not when the doctors explained the risks, not even when I lay awake at 3 a.m. thinking about my mortality. But I cried then, like a man robbed of something sacred. Trust, love, family. I emailed Ella the documents, attached every file, labeled them clearly. I typed one sentence in the body of the email, my last message to you. Then I called my lawyer and said, take her name off everything. She's no daughter of mine. And I meant it. The email sat in my sent folder like a tombstone. My last message to you. I didn't expect a reply. I didn't want one. What do you say to a child who counted your casket before you were even in a hospital gown? The house felt bigger now, emptier, but quieter too. May, the nurse, made it livable. She brought in the scent of lavender, the rhythm of routine, and a soft steadiness that had gone missing long before Ella's betrayal. She never overstepped, but she wasn't robotic either. She noticed when my appetite dropped. She joked gently when I grew too quiet. She reminded me I was still here, still a person, not a burden. For a few days, I floated through recovery on autopilot. I read old newspapers, watched the same news channels, ate whatever May made. I moved from bedroom to study, from study to porch. I said very little. But the folder, the one I found in the guest house, never left my thoughts. I kept going back to it, flipping through the pages even though I knew every line by heart. The most damning was an email draft addressed to a broker. Ryan had written, once the old man's gone, I'll take over operations and ensure the transition is seamless. Ella already has the board's trust. My company, the one I'd spent 32 years building. From a two-man export office to an international trade firm with clients on 4 continents. I built it stone by stone, cutting deals from pay phones, driving 8 hours to meet suppliers who now begged for a seat at the table. Ella had never shown any real interest. She said it was too stressful and not her vibe. Yet here she was, plotting its sale, like a house on a foreclosure list. They weren't just expecting me to die, they were counting on it. I sent the entire file to my lawyer and said, add a clause. If she contests the will, she gets nothing. Not a cent. He replied within the hour, done. I'm sorry, Alan. Truly. After that, I asked May to take me to the office, not to work, just to walk through it. I needed to see the faces, the people who'd been with me longer than my daughter had ever cared to understand. My assistant, Lorna, hugged me so tightly I thought I'd break a rib. You scared the hell out of us, she said, tearing up. Don't you dare leave us like that again. I smiled for the first time in days. Not planning to. We had coffee in the break room, and I watched as my employees moved with quiet dedication. No one here wanted me dead. They'd prayed, sent flowers, called the hospital. They cared. That realization lodged itself deep in my chest. Family isn't who you raise. It's who shows up when you fall. When we got home that afternoon, there was an envelope waiting in the mail slot. No return address. I opened it in the living room, with May quietly folding laundry nearby. It was a handwritten letter. From Ella. Dad, I know you found the folder. You're overreacting. Ryan was just preparing for possibilities. It doesn't mean we wanted you to die. You're making a big mistake pushing us away when you need family the most. We still care about you. Please call me so we can fix this. I passed it to May without a word. She read it slowly, then looked up. Do you want to fix it? No, I said, my voice like gravel. I want to bury it. I wrote no reply. Instead, I asked May if she could help me draft a new will, not just to remove Ella's name, but to repurpose the entire legacy. I didn't want the money to rot in her hands. I didn't want my company gutted and flipped like a foreclosure. I decided then, if blood meant betrayal, then I would find worth elsewhere. An orphanage. A cause. People who needed help, not vultures waiting for my last breath. May sat beside me at the dining table as I dictated. She didn't say much, just nodded at the right times. Her presence wasn't loud, but it was real, tangible. And for the first time in weeks, I felt like I was building something again, not just erasing a past, but forging a new beginning. Later that night, as I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, I heard her hum softly from the guest room. A lullaby, maybe, or something from her childhood. It reminded me of how Ella used to hum when she was little, back before bitterness hardened her into someone I didn't recognize. I didn't hate her. I envied the girl she once was. But that girl was gone. I closed my eyes and repeated the words I'd sent her, my last message to you. And this time, I believed it. Silence can be deceptive. At first, it felt like peace. Ella hadn't called, Ryan hadn't texted, and the mail was quiet for nearly a week. I assumed they had taken the message to heart. I hoped, foolishly, that maybe they'd sit with what they'd done, maybe even regret it. But people like that don't feel guilt. They feel insulted. And when you cut them off, they don't reflect. They retaliate. It came on a Sunday afternoon. I had just finished a short walk in the backyard with May, the air thick with the scent of honeysuckle and early summer heat. I was starting to regain my strength, slow steps, steady hands, even laughter again. May had brought me a glass of lemon water and left me with the radio on. I sat alone in the den, letting the quiet hum of jazz soothe my thoughts. Then my phone buzzed. A voicemail. Not a call, just a voicemail. I opened it. Ella's voice was sharp, brittle with rage. So this is who you are now? You kick your only daughter out, after everything we've done for you? You humiliate me, cut me off, and now what? Send your lawyer to smear my name with this disinheritance garbage? You're unbelievable. Ryan's right. You've lost it. That nurse is probably bleeding you dry and laughing behind your back. Just know this, you'll die alone. Don't expect me at your funeral. Or to cry. You made this bed. It was the kind of message that left a taste in your mouth. Like rust. Like something had spoiled in the air. I didn't play it twice. Once was enough. I deleted it, but the words stayed lodged behind my ribs like a nail. You'll die alone. That line echoed long after the voicemail was gone. May saw my face when she returned with a fresh bowl of soup. You okay? She asked gently. I nodded, but my eyes gave me away. Another message? She asked, sitting down across from me. Yeah, I said. This one came with fangs. She didn't say anything at first. Just let the silence stretch between us. Then, quietly, you want to talk about it? No, I said. I just wanted to stop. But it didn't. The next morning, the fallout went public. It started with a Facebook post. Ella tagged me, though my account had been inactive for years. A long, weepy message about how her toxic father had chosen a stranger over his only family. She painted herself as the victim, claimed I was unstable, manipulated by a gold-digging nurse, and accused me of destroying the legacy our family worked for. Hundreds of likes, dozens of comments, some from her friends, others from old family acquaintances. A few people even messaged me directly, asking if I was okay, or, more offensively, asking why I was doing this to my own flesh and blood. I didn't respond to any of them. Instead, I printed the post. I filed it away, along with her voicemail transcript, under a folder titled Clarity. Not revenge, not evidence, just clarity. I needed reminders. Reminders of why I couldn't go back. Why I couldn't let guilt overrule truth. Later that day, I sat with May in the sunroom. She had just trimmed the hydrangeas and left her gardening gloves on the table. We didn't speak for a while. Then she broke the silence. I saw the post. I looked up. Of course you did. She's hurting, she said, not defending Ella, just stating it plainly. But hurt doesn't justify cruelty. I leaned back and closed my eyes. I didn't raise her to be like this. No, she said softly. But sometimes, we raise them, and the world finishes the job. That night, as I brushed my teeth and stared at the creases in my face, I thought about legacy. What it really meant. I used to believe it was passing down wealth, a name, a company. But now, maybe legacy was also about drawing a line. About ending cycles instead of feeding them. Maybe the best thing I could pass down was freedom from manipulation. I walked past the guest room, paused at May's door, and knocked gently. Do you have a moment? She opened it, still in her robe, her hair pulled back. Of course. I stepped inside. Would you stay a little longer than originally planned? She blinked. You mean, beyond the recovery? Yes, I said. I mean, maybe even indefinitely. I'd pay you fairly. More than fairly. But not just for the work. I enjoy your company. May smiled, a real one. Let's take it one day at a time. And for the first time in months, I felt like I had time again. It began with tea. Not the romantic kind, No violins, no candlelight. Just two mismatched mugs on a quiet Tuesday evening. May had made chamomile, insisted it would help me sleep. I was sitting on the back porch in my worn flannel robe, knees stiff and aching but heart strangely calm. The air was cool, summer giving way to fall. She handed me the mug, sat down on the opposite rocking chair, and asked, "You ever think about starting over?" I took a slow sip. Every day? There was no grand shift, no moment when I suddenly saw her as anything other than my nurse. It was gradual. A kindness here, a shared laugh there. The way she watched over me, not out of obligation, but out of something quieter, something gentler. Compassion, presence. Unlike Ella, who clocked out emotionally the moment I wasn't convenient, May leaned in. She noticed when I winced, brought me cushions before I asked, adjusted the blinds when the sun hit my eyes too sharply. She didn't just take care of my body. She saw the man in the wreckage and never once made me feel like I was wasting space. I found myself looking forward to our chats, short stories about her hometown, about her brother who ran a barber shop, her mother who taught her how to cook without measuring a thing. The best food, she said with a smile, comes from instinct. She told me how she had never married, how her last relationship ended 5 years ago because the man said she was too independent. I laughed hard at that one. Too independent? I repeated. That sounds like something a weak man says when he can't keep up. She grinned. Exactly what my mother said. We fell into a rhythm that neither of us named. I still had the occasional checkup. My health wasn't perfect. But I began to sleep deeper, eat more, laugh louder. The house began to feel like a home again. Not because of possessions, but because of presence. One evening, after dinner, I stood in the kitchen drying dishes while she rinsed. Our hands bumped as we passed a plate, and something lingered. A second too long. She looked up. I looked away. The next morning, I found her sitting in the garden reading a book. I sat beside her. Not a word was spoken for 5 minutes. Then I cleared my throat. "This is probably wildly inappropriate," I said, voice shaking more than I wanted. "But I've come to look forward to more than just your cooking and your medical precision." May didn't speak right away. She closed the book, turned to me with soft eyes, and said, "I was wondering when you'd say something." I chuckled, out of relief, embarrassment, maybe both. I'm not the man I used to be. Physically, financially, sure, but emotionally, I'm still piecing it together. "You don't need to be the man you were," she said. "Just be real." And so I was. Over the next few weeks, we shifted again, less nurse and patient, more two people walking through grief, healing, and unexpected connection. We took drives, cooked together, watched old black and white films. I kissed her one night in the living room while the credits rolled, and she kissed me back without hesitation. It felt like the first warm day after a long winter, unfamiliar, but desperately needed. When I asked her to marry me, it wasn't over candlelight. It was in the garden, under the same oak tree where we'd first started talking like equals. I didn't get down on one knee. I physically couldn't. But I held her hand, looked her in the eye, and said, "I'd like to build the rest of whatever time I've got with you. But I need to be honest. I want a prenup. I have to protect what's left. Not from you, just from history repeating itself." She didn't blink. "Of course," she said. "You don't even need to explain." We signed the papers together the following week. She never once asked about the money, the assets, or the company. That was when I knew I'd chosen right. We married in a small ceremony in the backyard. No guests except Lorna from the office, May's brother, and the justice of the peace. No Ella. No drama. Just us, beneath the canopy of the oak tree, with new vows and old hearts learning how to beat again. 3 months later, May found out she was pregnant. I remember staring at the test stick in disbelief. At my age, I asked, laughing, crying, not sure where the emotion began or ended. "You're still kicking," she said, wiping tears from her cheeks. And apparently still kicking well. We sat on the bed, holding each other, both of us stunned and overjoyed. In that moment, everything shifted again. I wasn't just healing. I was growing, becoming a husband, and soon, a father again. That night, I rewrote my will. Ella was already gone from it. But now, every line, every clause, every dollar had direction. My wife. our unborn child. The life we were building, simple, grounded, and real. The orphanage I'd chosen remained a beneficiary, too, because some children, like mine, grow up with everything and still choose destruction. Others grow up with nothing and become the best people you'll ever meet. As I sealed the documents and placed them in the fireproof box, I realized something. I hadn't just found love again. I had finally found peace. The first time I held my son, I wept. Not from fear or shock, though God knows I was terrified, but from something deeper, something ancient. He was barely 7 pounds, his face pink and furrowed like an old man contemplating the world. And yet in that fragile frame was a power I hadn't felt in years. Purpose. True, unfiltered, uncompromising purpose. I named him Samuel, after my father, the only man who had ever taught me that love didn't have to be loud to be lifelong. May looked up from the hospital bed, her skin pale but glowing in the way only new mothers do, and whispered, "He looks like you." And just like that, I felt reborn. The weeks that followed were a blur of feedings, sleepless nights, and learning to change diapers with trembling hands. I was slower than I'd been with Ella, less confident, but more aware. I held every moment like a lit match, fragile and bright. I knew what it was to lose family. I wasn't going to lose this one. Not to neglect, not to ego, and certainly not to bloodlines that no longer deserve to be called family. One crisp morning in October, I took Samuel on his first walk in the garden. He was bundled tightly, sleeping soundly against my chest in a soft wrap May had chosen. The leaves had begun to fall, golden, red, brown, and for the first time in years, I noticed how beautiful silence could be. Not empty, just full of space. Space to think, space to feel, space to be. That peace shattered the moment I saw the black Mercedes pull into the driveway. Ella stepped out like she still belonged. Designer coat, oversized sunglasses, chin high as if the months hadn't happened. As if the voicemail, the Facebook post, the betrayal hadn't existed. I didn't say a word. I kept rocking Samuel gently, trying not to let my pulse spike. She stood at the edge of the porch, taking me in like a stranger she didn't know whether to greet or slap. "I heard," she said, removing her sunglasses. "About the baby." I raised an eyebrow. "You heard? Or you stalked?" She flinched slightly, but recovered. "I figured it out when your assistant posted a picture. And I saw the revised will filings in the registry. Of course, it wasn't the birth. It wasn't the life. It was the paperwork. Congrats," she said, her tone flat. "You've replaced me." I looked down at my son. "I didn't replace you, Ella. I released you." She crossed her arms. "So this is it. You're just erasing me from everything." "No," I said quietly. "You erased yourself. I'm just finally reading the handwriting on the wall." She walked closer, but I took a step back. Samuel stirred, and I gently patted his back. "I came to make peace," she said. "No, you came to make a case," I replied. "There's a difference." "I made mistakes," she continued, ignoring the sting. "I was scared. Ryan was pushing me. We thought we were doing the right thing. Just preparing for the worst." I turned to face her. "You planned my funeral. You drafted emails about selling my company. You wrote me off while I was still under anesthesia. That's not fear. That's ambition without soul. I'm still your daughter." "No, Ella," I said, voice low but firm. "You were my daughter. Now, you're just someone I used to protect." Her face cracked then. For a moment, I saw the child she once was. The one who used to run through these same gardens, barefoot and laughing, a dandelion tucked behind her ear. But that girl was long gone, buried beneath years of entitlement and bitterness. She tried again. "Dad, I have nothing left to give you," I cut in, "except boundaries. And I'm giving those freely." She didn't cry. She didn't beg. She just turned, stepped off the porch, and got back into the Mercedes. And as she drove off, tires silent on the gravel, I realized something with bone-deep clarity. I no longer owed her anything. That evening, I fed Samuel while May cooked. She hummed in the kitchen, and the scent of garlic and butter wafted through the house. I sat in the nursery, rocking gently, thinking about legacy. It used to mean inheritance. Now it meant moments like this. One hand holding a bottle, the other holding hope. I met with my lawyer the next day and finalized the documents. Everything I owned, house, company, savings, would go to May and Samuel. A portion would be set aside for the orphanage, but the rest, it would stay in this family. This chosen family. One built not from blood, but from healing. I need to add something, I told him before leaving. He raised an eyebrow. An addendum? No. A letter. To be read if I pass. He handed me a pen and paper. I sat there in his office and wrote. To whoever reads this, if you're looking for my daughter, she left long ago, long before the paperwork proved it. If you're looking for my heir, look no further. He's likely toddling through the garden or giggling in his mother's arms. I loved, I lost, I learned. And I chose peace. That is my real legacy. I sealed the letter and handed it over. The first time Samuel said Dada, I nearly dropped the coffee mug in my hand. It was a sleepy morning in late spring, and May had just stepped into the shower. I was seated cross-legged on the living room floor, trying to reassemble a toy with one hand while holding a teething ring in the other. Samuel, now toddling but wobbly, had crawled into my lap and placed his tiny hand on my chest. Dada, he said just like that. No build-up. No dramatics. Just a word, so small, but so powerful it cracked something open inside me. I froze, blinking back tears, unable to speak. He said it again, giggling this time, as if proud of his discovery. Dada. I laughed then. A full laugh. Not the polite chuckle I gave clients or the restrained smile I reserved for acquaintances. This was different. This was release. This was real. I picked him up and kissed the top of his head. Yes, I whispered. Dada. The days that followed passed like a blur of sunlight and soft exhaustion. We had a new rhythm now, diaper changes, nap times, books read 3 times in a row. May worked part-time again, just a few hours a week at the clinic, while I handled things at home. I'd sold a portion of the company, just enough to keep our future secure, but left enough untouched to remind me that my life was still my own. One quiet Sunday, I took Samuel to the orphanage. It wasn't ceremonial or performative, just a quiet visit. The foundation had been set up in my name weeks earlier, but I wanted to see it through his eyes. Children played in the yard. Boys and girls laughing, fighting over toy trucks, pulling at swings. Some of them paused and stared when they saw us. One boy, about 10, walked up and said, "You're the guy who gave us books, right?" I smiled. Something like that. "You don't look rich," he said, squinting. I burst out laughing. Good. I've worked hard to make sure I don't anymore. Later, as Samuel napped on my chest under the shade of a tree, I realized something crucial. All the pain I'd endured. The betrayal, the isolation, the heartbreak, had brought me here. Not to a throne, not to revenge, but to a park bench holding a sleeping child who had no idea how much he had healed me. Still, the past had its way of creeping in. A month after our visit, I received a letter. It was handwritten, but not by Ella. It was from her therapist. Apparently, Ella had begun attending sessions. The letter explained she was working through some of her emotional distortions, that she had written me several letters, but never sent them. That she wasn't seeking forgiveness, just understanding. That she had realized her actions were fueled by resentment she didn't understand until it was too late. I didn't respond, but I didn't throw the letter away either. That was my redemptive gesture, not acceptance, not reconciliation, but restraint. I didn't have to scream, accuse, or justify. I had found something better than revenge. That night, I sat outside with May, the baby monitor beside us, both of us wrapped in silence and the soft hum of crickets. I handed her the letter. She read it and set it aside. "You okay?" she asked. "Better than I've ever been," I said. "You believe her?" "I believe she's trying," I said. "But trying doesn't mean I have to let her back in." She nodded. "That's fair." I took her hand, kissed the back of it gently. "I'm not bitter anymore. I'm settled. She can heal if she wants. But I won't reopen old wounds just because she has a new therapist." "Boundaries," May whispered. "Exactly." Before heading inside, I looked back once more at the garden. The same one Ella used to run through. The same one where I married May. The same one where Samuel would one day learn to walk. It wasn't about starting over anymore. It was about choosing better. Choosing peace. Choosing presence. I tucked the therapist's letter into a drawer, not as a keepsake, but as a reminder. I could be open without being vulnerable. I could be compassionate without being careless. I could be a father again, not because I was given a second chance with Ella, but because I had the courage to stop waiting for her and start living without her. As I turned off the light and walked upstairs to our room, I paused at the door of Samuel's nursery. He was fast asleep, arms splayed, mouth open in that unguarded way only babies can manage. I whispered, "You saved me, little one." And I meant it. Have you ever had to choose peace over family? Sometimes the deepest wounds come from those closest to us, but healing doesn't always mean reconciliation. If this story struck a chord, let us know in the comments. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your story. Someone out there might need the courage to walk away too. See you soon in the next story.